Real quickly, want to give an update. NAC 571, as most of you are aware, we had some workshops this last year dealing with that Nevada Administrative Code, or the regulations there. The biggest part of that, I guess, were the trick regulations and some proposed language on trick testing in the state of Nevada. I'm not going to steal the thunder for the rest of the week. And Dr. Wallstrom, he will be talking a lot about testing for trick as you guys go across the state. But I do want to let you know that we had a lot of good input in 3 workshops that we did have this winter already. We're kind of looking at maybe pivoting a little bit and kind of reevaluating how we want to do mandatory testing in an area that is positive, and what those contact herds look like. That is still the biggest beast out here right now. You want to talk about something that robs our profitability and robs your calf crop, it's trick. And we have a couple of areas in the state that continue to struggle with it. The frustrating thing for me, having been gone for 3, almost 4 years and then back again, I could have almost guaranteed where those hot spots were going to be this fall, even though I hadn't been involved in it for the last 3 years. And sure enough, it is. We see them clean up for a year or 2, and then they come right back. So we're obviously not doing the job we need to as producers, as private veterinarians, and then obviously us on the regulatory side. We're not doing the job we need to do to make sure we're getting this stamped out. One of the downsides to that, folks, is we're getting a lot of pressure from neighboring states. We're starting to see some concern with pasture to pasture movement of cattle out of Nevada, even though that, we're marking the box that no, we're clean. We're marking the box that our bulls haven't been tested positive for the last couple of years, but we're starting to see, are we really sure? We're seeing a lot of commuter cattle back and forth across the state right now. Don, if you guys were just paying attention to his talk there, along with the liquidation, we've seen a lot of transient cattle, if you will. So we're not always real sure what cows are coming in next to us and where they're going back and forth. So we're going to do a better job on that. One other thing I do want to touch on in regards to those regulations, we're making a lot of changes, not just trick, but a lot of changes to 571 in general. But a real exciting thing for me is that we're proposing, if you use an RFID, an electronic ID brucellosis tag in your heifers, and your cow herd has those in it, that we will recognize that as proof of official calf foot vaccination for sale of cattle in Nevada, and we won't have to stop those cows and look for a tattoo and read a tattoo as the current regulations require us to do. We will also allow for the importation of cattle without them having to stop from an outside state and be checked for a tattoo. So that's exciting stuff for us, the presence of that button. The reason we will do that, they are truly tamper proof. This is not a bangs tag here, a brucellosis tag, but it is the same product. Once you put them in, they don't come apart. This one's out because it got hung in a feed manger, and it did tear out of the ear. But once that's in, it is in there forever. And I'm going to talk a lot more about about ADT here in just a little bit. One other thing that we're looking at doing at Department of Agriculture in the near future is kind of revamping our reportable disease list. And this might be more for some veterinarians that are listening, but it is important for you as producers to know as well. We have a very extensive reportable disease list in the state of Nevada. And we want to kind of break that out into diseases that we want to know of immediately, and then some others that we need to know of in a couple of days, and then some that, you can let us know in 30 days or so from the time that's been diagnosed in your herd. They're not really that important and that infectious, shall we say, but we still want to know about them. So be looking for that. We're not real sure. We don't think we're going to have to make any rule changes for that. It could probably be administrative function, but it's going to clean it up a lot. This winter, we've already seen some zoonotic disease been diagnosed in our lab through Sparks. A lot of that is gastrointestinal related. We had some cattle in the central part of the state that they've been treated for coccidiosis repeatedly, and finally they were able to culture Campylobacter out of those. And so we want to be real careful, and this is a good time to remind everybody Wash your hands, use PPE as much as possible. You don't want some of these bugs. When you're treating cattle for coccidiosis and they're losing weight, you can only imagine that what that bug, not being coccidiosis, will do to you should you get that. So PPE is going to be very, very, very important. Now I want to transition just a little bit into animal disease traceability. You guys that have known me for a while know that this is a big thing for me. And the one thing that scares me to death, and it does keep me up at night, is that our program in the United States is subpar, and that is not acceptable. We do anticipate a proposed rule from USDA APHIS any day. I actually kind of thought we'd have seen it before the first of the calendar year, but we haven't seen it yet, but it should be coming out. And some of you will remember a few years ago that came out in a push for electronic ID. Of course, like anything today, they were promptly sued. And so they had to withdraw that rule because they hadn't gone through the proper process. They think they're a lot closer now on what they actually want to do. My crystal ball is telling me that we will see a complete transition within 3 to 4 years away from our traditional metal tags that we use now. So those of us in the West, and especially in Nevada, those brucellosis vaccination tags, we're going to transition away from those. We're going to go to the electronic ID, and that will be a proposed rule by the USDA. What it will initially pertain to is our more aged cattle, 18 months and older. So bulls, heifers, and cows over 18 months of age, the ones that the animal disease traceability rules apply to today. We will not immediately see that get pushed down to feeders or stockers, but I will tell you that nationwide there is a push to go to that. And it probably only makes sense that, rather than just trying to track our adult and mature cattle, we are going to want to track those feeder cattle. And you may say, well, why? What's that going to matter? They're just feeder cattle. You just saw the market report, and what we're looking at from Dawn Close. Things are looking a lot better, trending in the right direction, trending upward for cow-calf guys, especially. But there's one thing that could just shipwreck that. And we all remember the cow that ruined Christmas with BSE. It seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. But that is nothing compared to what a foreign animal disease such as foot and mouth could do to our markets and to our country. Just ask Australia how nervous they are. There is foot and mouth in Indonesia, so it is just a couple 100 miles away on some islands from the mainland of Australia. When or if that makes the jump, and I'm going to say when that makes the jump to Australia, that is going to be catastrophic for them. And guys, I'm not going to BS you a bit. We will see a foreign animal disease in this country. I don't know if it'll be foot and mouth, if lumpy skin disease, something along those lines. But if you just take a step back and think about what it did to the poultry industry, having high path avian influenza again this last year, and you can't get eggs. The price of poultry in the store, from what I understand, has gone up. I don't buy it because I don't eat it, but I understand that is becoming a lot more expensive as well. When that hits, and it hits in the cattle sector, it's going to be a pretty big bubble, and it's going to pop. So we need to be prepared. We need to embrace this electronic ID. I fully believe that the technology is catching up. You're probably going to ask, all right, do we want high frequency? Do we want low frequency, ultra high frequency tags? What is everyone pushing for? What is the industry pushing for? Right now, there's no specific ask. My ideal world is dual frequency. That way you can wand those cattle if you're doing something up close with them, a disease type situation, or if you're trying to do ranch management, individual animals as you're processing those in the fall. But what we really need is to be able to capture these group lots and that technology to where when those calves come off that scale, whether at the ranch or at the sale barn, wherever it is, and they get loaded on that truck, we have that entire lot, and we're not trying to scan one at a time, and we're not missing an animal. So I think that dual frequency will come. Again, it will come once the USDA issues their proposal that here's the rule and here's where we're going. To that end, Nevada Department of Agriculture has been pushing these 840 RFID tags for several years now. We still are. There seems to be some confusion on how you get them and what you can use them for. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes here and kind of walk through that. You can contact the Sparks office. Dr. Keith Forbes, our veterinary diagnostician, is the one that is kind of managing this program for us. You contact him, you can fill out a form, you can email it to him, and we're calling them white tags. This is a yellow tag that I have here, but we have white tags that we will issue to a producer, and you may put those in your cows if you wish. You may put those in steers that you are selling, and in order to get in the practice of starting to use those. They are 840 tags, so they are official ID tags. You can contact him for those. If you want to use the orange brucellosis vaccination tags, you need to have your veterinarian contact the lab in Sparks, and we will go through that process. We got to make sure that your livestock assessment is paid. We also do double check and make sure that you're not asking for 1,000 tags and your livestock assessment says you own 200 cows. That's kind of a red flag. So there is a little bit of check and balance there. A couple of us go through and make sure you're in good standing and that's acceptable. So you can call down there, you can email Dr. Forbes, you can call the front desk, you can call Dr. Forbes himself on his line. All that's readily available on NDA's website. And again, you can ask for these tags and you can put them in. I mentioned 840 tags. 840 tags are official ID. They are exactly the same as our silver bright tags, those metal tags that we put in cows that have lost brucellosis tags, or that we put in for some form of official ID. What you cannot do, and what we do not want you to do, is to buy 1,000 of these tags, or to not buy, but have them delivered to you from Department of Agriculture. They are free of cost at this time. And then put them in cows that already have an official ID. That is not what these are intended for. These are intended for use in cattle that don't have an official ID. Your veterinarian can actually get these if you're trying to sell some cattle and you need to ID them out of state or even in state and they've lost their brucellosis tags. You can replace them with an EID tag right now. If you do end up putting them in an animal that has a bright tag or has a metal banks tag, then we have really no way of crosswalking that information at this time. So she's going to have two IDs, and somewhere down the road, we're not going to have any idea where that cow came from. And that is not going to serve the purpose of animal disease traceability if we need to trace her back to where she originated. Now, a lot of you guys might be using tags that you buy from another source or provided to you from another source for programs, added value programs when you market your cattle. A lot of those are 900 series tags. They're fine to use for ranch management. They're fine to use for those programs, but 900 series tags are not official ID by the United States Department of Agriculture, nor are they official ID in the state of Nevada. So just go in with that. If you tag all of your cattle, all of your calves, and they have 900 series tags in them, they don't mean anything for official ID for us. Ideally, what we would like to have people continue to do, use the brucellosis RFID tags, get those free of cost from us. We have them in Elko as well. You just go through the process in Sparks and you can arrange for pickup at the Elko office. Put those 840 tags in your steers right now, even though it's just good practice to do it. And you say, well, why would I? It seems like a waste of money. It's free and it's coming. So I'm going to ask that you please do that going forward and work with your veterinarian on the brucellosis stuff. Some things that we've seen coming in to the lab. It's that time of year. So we're seeing some late term abortions / preterm calves coming in. We're seeing some diagnosis of some lepto in some herds. And unfortunately, we've also got some Vibrio, some Campylobacter fetus out there floating around right now. So now is the time of year where we tend to see that. So be aware, everybody. Really watch your cattle close. And I'm going to tell you that the best samples that we can have are those fresh fetuses or fresh premature calves and fresh placenta. I can't tell you enough how valuable that placenta is to us when we're trying to work these diagnostics up. And I know there's a vet panel on after me, and so they may have some stuff to add there as well. So I do not want to take all of their time. Barry, I'm just going to see for a question if there. Pause here for a second. Are there any question and answers out there? I feel like I'm just rambling and we're talking about the same thing, and I want to make sure we answer any questions that we might have.
I've got a couple of questions here that have already come in.
Okay.
One has to do with tags and the other has to do with vaccines. Let me do the tags first. Is there a visual difference between the 800 and the 900 tags, or is it just in the number?
Yeah, so it's just in the number. So it's that first 3 digits. So there is no difference visually. An RFID 900 tag is going to be round and have the back on it just like this. The one thing that you will notice on here, and on an 840 says unlawful to remove, and it has the U.S. seal on it, the United States Department of Agriculture, APHIS seal on there. So that is different. Not all the 900s don't have that. They usually have a program, a logo of some kind on them, but you can't tell just by looking over the fence what that is.
Great. This one says, do you have any data on EBA vaccine use, foothills abortion use to this point?
We do have some data as far as the number of doses that we're seeing. I don't have it readily available. Dr. Perryman, I was not prepared to deliver on that. It is very effective. We are seeing its use spread, I guess, if you will, into some areas where EBA has been diagnosed in recent years that we weren't aware it was there. But I don't have those numbers, but I'm happy to get it over to you. I can send it over to you or to Stacy, and we'll make sure we get those out as a follow-up if you'd like. The thing to keep in mind on EBA too, it's a different vaccine, guys. It's hard to handle. You've got to have it in your semen tank for all practical purposes, is how you transport it. You've got to handle it right, and then the timing of when you want to put that in. So you just, it's not one of those you just grab off the shelf and put in. So you really got to work closely with your veterinarian. You got to get that permission to have it shipped into your veterinarian and to get that taken care of. So be planning ahead of time. If you are planning on using EBA or you think you have it or you have had it diagnosed, by all means, work close with your veterinarian and early and often rather than.
I've got one more question here. Are we hearing about, or are you hearing anything about brisket or elevation disease in Nevada, especially with Angus cattle?
Well, we got to pick on Angus cattle. They pap test those as well. So yeah, we've seen some of it. I'll just tell you, as a kid, we saw a lot more of it than we are today. And I think, again, that is that genetic selection that they are doing, and all breeds are doing. I personally have not seen a brisket disease cow or bull in my practice area when I was in private practice. I bet I haven't seen one in 15 years, Barry. So I think we're going the right direction on that. We used to see them pretty regularly. Like I say, when I was younger and when I was working for Dr. Cusperson out of the Elko office when I was in high school and college, we saw them all the time. So we are seeing an improvement there, I believe, in those genetics.
You think that's a is that a real sort of effort to breed that out of cattle?
So
has it just been a byproduct of some of the other genetics that have come along?
It's both. These guys that have problems with it, they definitely test those bulls and they want to make sure those pap scores are what they need to be for those guys that are going from high elevation to low, especially in Colorado. That was a real big focus for a long time over there. But I think it's both. Genetics in general has greatly improved. I mean, what Don's slides there and talking about consumer demand and the price and where it was going, it's just no longer acceptable to just be a cow. You've got to do better at it. And these guys that are selling bulls would make a poor steer, they're not doing that anymore. They're just not able to stay in the business. That the consumer is demanding a different product, and as you said, along with that comes enhancements in other areas of the genetics of these animals, and it's a really exciting time. We used to laugh that Nevada was a long ways behind on some of these guys, but we're on the cutting edge right now. And these producers out here in Nevada, they're doing a really good job. I love talking to them about the genetics, and I love seeing that reward at the end of the day when they ship those calves and they get on those trucks and they're programmed cattle and they're being sought after out here. That's really exciting, especially as a state veterinarian, to be able to watch and see how much that's improved over the last 10 years.
Absolutely. I really get a kick of just genetics for each outfit. You work on your genetics for 30 years. That's why it becomes so important or even longer, it becomes so important to not downsize a herd whenever you get into these kinds of situations. You want to send those genetics down the road if you don't have to.
Absolutely. And you don't get them back overnight, and it's exciting to see when those genetics cross with your management, and you just see that explosion of good cattle on these ranches. It's exciting to see, and I feel good for our producers that do that. And it is, I think we are going to see, and I guess I'll just go into that for a second. On this drought, we're looking a lot better now. I mean, it's a long ways till spring. We all know that. We have seen a huge liquidation out of especially this part of the state up here around Elko, Eureka, White Pine County, Humboldt to a certain degree. We've seen a lot of cattle leave, and we know, we always laugh. Well, we don't laugh. We always say, well, they're not coming back. I think they're going to. I think we're going to continue to see some drought in some other parts of the country, and we're probably going to see some cattle roll into Nevada, pasture cattle, or maybe these guys are going to purchase some cattle that are going to be different. And so you want to be very careful, guys, as you're doing that. Where are you getting them? You can bring bugs in here that we're not used to again. So I want to really exercise caution in that. We talk about trick, and a lot of states don't trick test. A lot of states don't even know what it is as you get farther back east. But that's pretty minor to some of the bugs that you could drag in here. So I think as we watch this weather play out and we see what the spring and summer does, and we see some maybe pasture to pasture cattle roll in, or we see some new purchased ones, be aware that we don't want you to have buyer's remorse come next fall or the spring after.
Question. The beef cow needs to have genetics to produce a choice something calf plus a choice plus calf. Okay, I'll start over. The beef cow needs to have genetics to produce a choice plus calf. Is that true?
Yeah, well, yeah. So absolutely, genetics plays a huge role in that. You can't any more choice and plus is all that we see. So much more percentage of those yielding that those carcass grades that have just become so phenomenal. And again, that's genetics driving that. But yeah, they do. I mean, read those EPDs, really follow up on those, get to looking at those. And what's interesting is go back 30 years and see what those values were on there. And that'll answer your question, because those values were so much lower. That's why we were seeing select and choice rather than choice and prime. And so, yes, genetics definitely plays a role in that, huge role.
Next question. Why are the 900 series tags not considered official IDs?
Well, why is the federal government or state government do most anything? It's a loophole to jump through. I think they might get there at some point, but they weren't. So 840 is a country of origin tag, and so nation or worldwide, there were the prefix, and 840 was United States, and I don't keep them all straight, but Mexico has a 3-digit, Canada does, Brazil does, and 900 was never recognized as a United States origin number. So that's why. Now, I sat on a nationwide traceability working group over the last year, and I'll tell you that our concern is, as we do go forward, even with a 15-digit number on this tag, we're going to run out of numbers. at some point. So we are pushing for additional prefixes, whether that is 900 and whether the USDA agrees to allow those 900 series tags, that'll be up to them. But the short answer is it's 840 is our country of origin. That's why it's an official tag. It's very similar to, you can buy metal clips to put in your cow's ears that don't have 88 for the state sequence on the front of them. They're not an official ID. 88 is a Nevada official prefix, just like 840 is an official prefix on the national level.
No more questions, guys? Looks like we're oh, one just popped up. I knew if I asked, we'd have another one jump up. So let me see if I can actually get to this one. Yes, I can. I'll ask it from here. How does the rancher find the report on the calves he sold to feeder, how the carcass graded? So how does the rancher find the report on calves he sold to a feeder on the carcass grade of those animals?
Well, you're going to want to go through that feeder. They will have that when they sold those fat cattle. You'll have to go through them. And that is a whole nother reason, guys, why you want to go with this individual ID. Because a lot of these guys, they're going to just send a pen lot. And if you don't have them ID'd, you're probably, maybe you don't know exactly what those cattle did. So you'll see them when you go to the feedlots. Obviously, you'll see yours will be commingled with others a lot of times in these fat pens. And so when they're ready, they go. And one of mine might go with 2 of Barry's and 3 of Roberts, and some of Dr. Whitaker's may be thrown in there as well. So, but you've got to go through that feeder in order to figure that out. There's not going to be a report, if you will. There's a library that shows what cattle are bringing across the country on a day and what the bids are and what they were sold for, but not those. You'll never know your individual grades and what they brought unless you work through that supply chain uphill.
Supply those ID tag numbers, and feeder can get you that information back. So go straight to that.
Barry, that this year I know some ranchers that sold to entities that do track them all the way through, and it's exciting when those guys, when they buy those calves, and they'll tell you, all right, when they're on the rail, we will get you all this information, and then you can make those genetic changes to drive that carcass value better. So those guys that are hanging them up and that are feeding them and take it from the time they leave your ranch and they're following them all the way through and putting them on the rail and in the box, those are the guys that are going to get you that data, because they want a better product, and they want your product to be better.